Hello friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we're going to go back to school. I know that school is beginning to come back into session for everybody. Well, we as gardeners, we need to go to school as well. So today we're having a Fertilizer 101. Everything you need to know about fertilizers and why are we going to fertilize our gardens in the first place. So I have a great assortment of fertilizers that we offer here at Creekside Nursery, both here at the Garden Center and online. And so I think it's very important to understand what the differences are between these types of fertilizers, because that's one of the biggest questions that we get here at the Garden Center is, well, what do I use? And so hopefully we are going to kind of demystify fertilizers for you today and give you that great information. Before we get going, if you need to grab your gardening journal, grab that, a piece of paper, grab something to drink and get nice and cozy so that we can get this information to you. All right, so before we start to talk about the specific fertilizers, let's talk about fertilizers in general. What is their purpose? Well, their purpose, of course, is to feed the plants. This is going to be that natural food for your plants so that they can grow strong and healthy and give us a beautiful show, whether that means through foliage or through flowers. All fertilizers have to have a labeling on them. It's going to be 3 numbers that are listed, and basically what those are is it's going to stand for NPK. So we're going to break this down because I know it can be confusing sometimes, and even myself sometimes I have to think about it. Okay, so N, the very first number, and they're always going to be in this order. So N is going to stand for nitrogen, okay? Your nitrogen basically is going to green up the plant. So that gives it that nice, dark, rich green, or maybe it's a chartreuse plant and it gives it that beautiful chartreuse color. This is the most important ingredient for your growth, for the plant's growth. And it provides those lush green leaves within the entire plant. So that is your N. That is your highest, your first number on the scale. Next, the P. The P is for phosphorus. And so your phosphorus is going to produce healthy roots and blooms, because as we say, if you have happy roots, you have happy shoots. So you're going to have gorgeous flowers. This phosphorus is going to help the plant use and store that energy that is necessary to produce those beautiful blooms. And it is also critical for your healthy root system, because we want to have strong, healthy roots for our plants. And then finally we have the K. Now, K stands for potassium. Do you know why we use K for potassium? That's right, because on the periodic table, potassium is represented by the letter K. Instead of saying NPP, we have NPK. And so your potassium promotes basically your all-around well-being. Think of it as like your multivitamin. This is going to be the one that makes sure that your plant has the overall good health for it. It's going to help the plant be most protective against your pests and your diseases. When you're looking at those 3 numbers, the NPK, they're going to range depending on the fertilizer. Some of them, maybe if you're used to like synthetic fertilizers, you hear of 10, 10, 10. Well, the ones we're going to talk about today, especially your espoma, they're going to be those slow release, and they have very small numbers. So why is that different between the fertilizers? Well, those numbers, those NPK, is the actual numbers themselves, the numerals, is the percent of weight of micronutrients. So that kind of gives you an idea of how strong that fertilizer is. So say a 10, 10, 10 is going to be much stronger than something that's like a 4, 3, 2. Okay, so that just kind of gives you an idea. Now, let's get into the different types of fertilizers that we use here at Creekside Nursery, because we have really, through our experience, kind of nailed down what do we use the most and what do most of our customers use. Now, obviously, there are some fantastic fertilizers out there on the market. So maybe one, you don't have these available to you, or you have a favorite brand that you use. That is great. That is awesome. And so if you don't, and you don't know what to do, you can always go to your local garden center and ask for their help, because your local garden center is going to be the expert in your region. So here we go. First of all, we're going to talk about the proven winners, the water-soluble fertilizer, because this is the one that we use primarily on all of our flowering annuals. So the water-soluble fertilizer from Proven Winners, it comes in a tub, and you have got a scoop, and then you have got 2 plastic bags of a powder. Basically what you're going to do is 1 scoop, a tablespoon per gallon of water. So you can use it however, you know, if you're going to do a watering can of 2 gallons or a 5-gallon bucket, you can use that. You can also use this for your indoor plants, and there's information on the back of the can on how to use that. So what do you use this fertilizer on? So think of your flowering annuals. The ratio, those 3 numbers, is 24, 12, 17. So it's very high in nitrogen. It has that chelated iron in here that is going to give you that really dark, beautiful, lush foliage. Then, of course, then your phosphorus is 12 and your potassium is 17. So the Proven Winners water-soluble fertilizer was specifically formulated for their supers. Those are their most florific plants that they have. So think Supertunia, Superbells, Superbenas. So this is going to give you that beautiful dark lush foliage and all the food that those plants need to produce their beautiful flowers. I only use this on annuals, primarily my flowering annuals. Now, if you want to use it, you know, if you have a container that's got some Supertunias, annual grass, and you've got a coleus, absolutely, those plants are going to benefit from this as well. But just think annuals. This is not what we use on hydrangeas. This is not what we use on roses. Annuals. So how much do you use and when do you use it? On the can, it says to feed your annuals every 3rd watering. Now that would be in a perfect ideal world, and if you can do that, kudos to you. You're going to have a gorgeous, stunning garden in the summer. Jenny sometimes just can't get it together that well. So I try to do it as much as I can, especially in the spring, summer, and then late summer. So if I can do it every 2 weeks, honestly, I'm doing really good. Another thing to think about is here in North Carolina, we have been having lots of rain, which is very unusual for the beginning of August, but we've had a ton of rain. The best time to go ahead and use water-soluble fertilizer on your annuals is after a big rain or a long season of rain. I know that may sound kind of like counterintuitive. You're like, well, Jenny, my plants are soaking wet. My containers are saturated with water. Why am I going to add more water? Don't think of it as adding more water. Think of it as adding food. You have just gone through a long rainy season. Maybe it's a couple of days, maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 weeks. Especially when your plants are in containers, all of that food, those nutrients have been leached out of that pot. Your plants are hungry. They need food. So yes, go ahead and mix up a watering pail, a 5-gallon bucket, whatever it is that you have, and go ahead and water them, feed them with the Proven Winners water-soluble fertilizer. How much do you use? Just pretend like you're watering on a normal day. So just an average amount, okay? Especially if it's in a container, it's going to drain once it has what it needs. So flowering annuals is the water-soluble fertilizer. I like to think of this in very loose terms of when you go to the doctor and you're sick. Let's say you've got, I don't know, whatever it is that you have, and that you need some immediate relief, and the doctor says, I'm going to give you something that's going to make you feel better within the next 24 hours, a steroid shot. Think of this as the steroid shot. This goes to work like immediately. So you're going to see a difference in your plants within a couple of days, a week. Okay, so this is very fast acting. Kind of switch over here, thinking of going along with those same medical terms, very loosely here, folks. All right, you go to the doctor and maybe they give you a steroid shot, but they're like, you also need an antibiotic. Long-term, you need long-term health to get over whatever it is that is ailing you. That is where the Proven Winners continuous release fertilizer comes in for your annuals. This is a slow release, a time release fertilizer. It's little pellets. Okay, so it has a little shaker top, so you can pop the top, and it has little holes so you can shake it, or when you open it up, there's also a scoop in that as well. This is what my mama calls shake and bake. She's like, I need the shake and bake stuff. So there you go. The The numbers on this are 15, 7, 15. So you can see that it is a lower dose than your water soluble. When do we use this? Again, this is for your annuals only. I like to use it when I plant them, whether it's in a container, an aqua pot, or the landscape. So what you are going to do is, there's two ways. There's not a right or a wrong. One, if you want to, you dig your hole and you can sprinkle it in the hole and then put the plant in there. That's one way. You can go ahead and plant it, put your soil back, and then take this and shake it on, around the plant. You can do that as well. Again, the plant is going to get those nutrients. Sometimes when I have like a large area, a section that's only going to be annuals, I will put down my fertilizers first, and then as I'm planting, that gets worked into the soil. It just makes it a little bit easier and a little bit of a time saver. So Proven Winners says that this will last up to 6 months. Honestly, because we are in the South, I find that it lasts for 3 months. So why this discrepancy? Why 3 months versus 6 months? Well, this is released by heat. Your slow release fertilizers, your time release fertilizers are going to be released by the temperature. So the higher the temperature, the more it releases. We are in the Southeast. We have high temperatures. They stay hot at night. So this is why I find that this lasts me for 3 months. So all we do is mid-season is I come back with my plants that are in the containers or the ground. I try to do it when they're dry. I shake it over the plants, and then I will come back and I will just kind of shake the plants, and all those little pellets fall to the ground. So these are the two primary ones that I use for my annuals. Remember, annuals are the ones that will last for one growing season, okay? Once you replace year to year. Now, moving into some other categories for our shrubs, perennials, trees. What are we going to use? Our vegetable gardens, those kinds of things. Well, first of all, we have to start with biotone. So all of these products are from Espoma. So if this is, again, what Creekside uses, if you have your favorite brand, then you go for it, and if it works for you in your garden, that is awesome. Biotone we started using a couple of years ago, and when I first started using it, I was very selective on what I used it for. I'm not really sure why, but I did. Mostly like the trees and the shrubs. Biotone is called a starter fertilizer, and so the ratio on the Biotone is 4:3:3, so much lower. Think of this, the lower those numbers, the less risk you have to worry about burning your plants, because when you get into something like a 10-10-10 or a 12-12-12, the risk of burning and killing your plants is extremely high. I have been using these products for years, and never once have I had any kind of burn on my plants from using the Espoma organic fertilizer. We use the Biotone starter because this is a special blend that has microbes and the mycorrhizae in it. This is primarily for those strong, healthy roots. That's why it's called a starter fertilizer. I only use it when I am planting the plants. Now we use it on everything. I use it on the trees, the shrubs, the perennials, the annuals in the landscape, annuals in containers, annuals in aqua pots, hay racks, hanging baskets, you name it. If I am planting, I'm going to use the Biotone starter fertilizer. Because again, if you have happy roots, you're going to have happy shoots. And so this really allows that really strong, healthy root system to begin. And I know for us here in North Carolina, we need all the help we can get, especially if I am adding shrubs, perennials, trees in the spring, because they're getting ready to go through a very long, hot growing season in the summer. So Biotone starter fertilizer. On the back, of course, with any fertilizer that you are using, you want to follow the manufacturer's suggested directions, right? So whatever they tell you to do, that is what you need to do. They will tell you exactly how much to use. So if you're going to plant a 3-gallon, then you're going to add 1.5 cups of this to your hole, and this bag will give you 8 plantings. So with our Biotone, what we do is we dig our hole, or if it's in a container, have your little hole in your pot. You're going to add that amount to the hole, take the plant, put it in the hole, bring back your native soil. It's as easy as that. From time and experience, I have learned, and just my personality, I just kind of eyeball it. Now, if your personality says that you need to have a measuring cup out there and measure this out and add it to the hole, do it. It is great. But I have, like I said, for me personally, I just kind of eyeball it, throw it in there because I do know that I'm not going to burn my plants when using this. But this makes one of the biggest differences in your plants. This is where you're going to see massive difference, especially if you've never used Biotone with your annuals and you begin using this with your annuals. You're going to be shocked at the absolute difference in the health and the vigor of those plants, and you're not going to have to be coming back and fertilizing maybe with the water soluble as often as you have had to before. All right, so starter fertilizer, there we go. Now we're going to get into the nit and gritty of all the different kinds, because honestly, y'all, you can get as specific as you want with your fertilizers. I think there's a fertilizer for just about every kind of plant, whether it's a rose, it's a camellia, it's a tomato plant, it is dahlias, you name it, there's probably a specific fertilizer for that plant. If you want to get that specific, you absolutely can do that. However, I tend to be a very simple kind of person, and I like to keep my my inventory small because I know what works. So as I tell people, if you're only going to buy one fertilizer for your garden, this would probably be it. This is Plant-Tone. Plant-Tone is what I call the Swiss Army knife of fertilizing in your garden because it will literally take care of everything. The ratio on Plant-Tone is 5-3-3. And this blend is good for whether it's your flowering annuals, for your vegetables, for your shrubs, for your trees, your perennials. This is the go-to fertilizer for those plants. It has that kind of that long lasting because these are slow release. So where you have the water soluble, that's going to give you that instant shot. You're thinking longevity with your Plant-Tone and your other slow release fertilizers from Espoma. Now, again, if you are just now planting, say, a perennial, let's say you're doing a hosta, right? You're planting your hosta, use your Biotone. That is it, nothing else. The earliest that you would come back with your Plant-Tone would be about 6 to 8 weeks. You don't want to use Biotone and Plant-Tone at the same time. You're kind of overdoing it, and so the plant just needs to get adjusted first. Once those roots are established, then you can start feeding it if you want to. How I use Plant-Tone primarily is 2 times of the year. My heavy feeding is when I am coming out of winter going into spring. So for me, that means I could start mid-February through early April because you've got a long period there. There is grace in gardening, and so we're going to give ourselves a nice window. This is when I go through, I try my best to go through my entire gardens and feed the plants. Swiss Army knife. The vast majority of our plants receive Plant-Tone. So those, I hate to say this, but those general perennials and shrubs. So my hostas, my ferns, my eucharas, those quote plants that are not going to get a other specific fertilizer, they get Plant-Tone. Again, it will tell you on the back if it's a new planting, if it's an established plant, whether it's a tree, whether it's a potted plant, all your information is on here. So I do a nice heavy feeding in that wintertime going into spring. Why then? Another analogy, I say, think of bears when they wake up from hibernation. What are they? They're hungry. They need food. They've been asleep all winter like your plants have been asleep. They're going into their strong growing season. They need food. So food equals flowers equals growth. So we're going to go ahead and feed them. If you have a bed that is filled with perennials and shrubs, if you want to specifically go around each individual root system, the drip line of each plant, you can do that. Sometimes, y'all, we've got vast gardens here, and lazy or efficient, whatever you want to call it. I will take it. I have like a little Tupperware hard plastic cup, and I'll scoop it, and I literally am like broadcasting it out. So that way the entire bed gets the food. So there is your Plant-Tone from the winter going into spring. Now the second time of the year that we use this is going in relatively, I would say, within the next month or so. Think of fall. This time though, you're going to do at a half dose rate. We're just going to give a little bit of food to those plants. They have just come through a long hot summer. They're tired. They need a little bit of food to get them through the winter. So Espoma recommends at a half dose rate. I think that's perfect. Just a little bit to help give them that rejuvenation to get through the winter with that strong, healthy roots. So thinking of that is we're going into the fall and we're going to fertilize our plants at that half dose rate. We actually have right now, all of our fertilizers are 20% off on the website. This sale is a short sale, so you want to move with purpose so that way you can stock up on these. All these fertilizers are on sale, 20% off. Use the code that is on the screen and we will ship it out to you ASAP because we are getting prepared for a beautiful fall. All right, now let's get into those specifics. The two that I use the absolute most in my garden. So we've got, talking about the slow release fertilizers, absolutely plant tone. Next, when we're going to get a little specific, holly tone. So one that I love about holly tone, it is a 434 by the way, but it tells you on the bag itself which shrubs love the holly tone, because holly tone is for those acidic loving plants. So think of your evergreens. That's the kind of the key. If you don't want to look at the bag, think, okay, is it an evergreen? Obviously, if it's a holly, you're going to use it. You're going to use it for your azaleas, your barberries, your blueberries, camellias, dogwoods, evergreens, gardenias. Like literally, it tells you everything on here that you're going to be using your holly tone for. So those acidic loving plants. For me, primarily, I use it on my gardenias and my camellias and my azaleas. And then, of course, anything like an evergreen shrubs, trees, like hollies, this is what I use. Also, as a side note, you will notice that some folks with hydrangeas recommend using holly tone on your hydrangeas. Well, why do they do that? Because by nature, your hydrangeas are not necessarily acid-loving plants. They're suggesting that for your hydrangeas that their color is pH dependent. So if you want to have those blues, those purple hydrangeas with those ones that are, pH dependent, then this is where you would use your holly tone, because that's going to make your soil, your pH more acidic, which then turns your hydrangeas that more blue purple. All right, so again, we do this in the spring, a nice good heavy dose in the spring, and then in the fall we do it at a half rate. My next one that I use all the time, and I go through bags and bags of this, is rose tone. Obviously, rose tone is primarily for our roses. That's right. So this has a 4:3:2 ratio on it. Also with the roses, in addition to the roses, I use this primarily on all of my hydrangeas. Of course, we are big fans, big supporters of the Proven Winner Color Choice shrubs, and so I like to follow the breeder's recommendation on maintenance of those plants. And so our friends at Spring Meadow Nursery, which is the home to the Proven Winner Color Choice shrubs, they recommend using a slow release fertilizer that is specifically made for roses, because your roses and your hydrangeas have those same nutritional requirements. So if you I just, as a general rule, will use this on all of my hydrangeas. Specifically, so whether it's my panicles, my serratas, my oak leaves, my max, it does not matter. I generally, without a doubt, use rose tone on those hydrangeas. Strong in the spring, and then again, half dose rate in the fall. If you're using this for roses, it tells you on the back with your roses, because it will tell you on here for rose beds, we are going to be using this and feed these plants. I believe it is once a month during the growing season for, yes, when to feed. Apply monthly from beginning of growing season to the middle of September, because roses bloom on new growth. So you get your flowers from the new growth. We want to promote lots of new growth, so that promotes those beautiful flowers. The reason we stop in September is because why? Well, the cold temperatures are coming. And so as soon as a frost freeze hits, then of course that's going to stop those that new growth from happening. So we don't need to use this during the winter months. So Begin feeding your roses when you start to see the new growth appear in late winter, early spring. So rose tone is a definite big one for me as well. Now talking about, this is not, I would say, necessarily a fertilizer per se, but some people really want blue hydrangeas. So if you need to change your soil's pH, you can use the soil acidifier. And so all this is the straight sulfur. And so I say straight sulfur is 30% sulfur. So this is what's going to change your hydrangeas to that beautiful blue color. And it's going to tell you exactly how to do it. So you're going to begin in the spring. And it's for new plants, use 1 1/4 cup. For established plants, use 2 1/2. Spread it evenly around the drip line. The drip line is simply where those branches reach out. That is the drip line. So we're going to apply that. So if you really want to change your color of your hydrangeas, you can use the soil acidifier, follow all those directions. And then my sweet people who are the veggie farmers, the veggie growers, you've got that gorgeous vegetable garden, herb garden going on in your garden, right? So 2 that we use. Again, if you want to just stay general, then we're going to use Garden Tone. Garden Tone is going to be great on all of your edible plants. The ratio on this is 3-4-4. So you can literally use it on anything that you're going to eat. And this is a slow release organic fertilizer, so you can feel safe using that. The more you use these fertilizers and you put them in your soil, those micronutrients stay in your soil. So over time, you're just building up a stronger, healthier soil system for your plants. Tomatoes sometimes can be a little funky as far as they can be a little divas in the garden. If you've ever grown a tomato, you know that they can be quite divish in the garden. So here we have Tomato Tone. So this is primarily for tomatoes, but you can use it for other vegetables as well. So the ratio on this is the 3-4-6. It is higher in your potassium because we need to have a really strong, healthy plant for tomatoes. They can be plagued by pests and by different issues. You've got blossom end rot, that's where the tomato, and then on the bottom of the tomato, it just turns black and you can't eat it. So having a really strong, healthy plant is going to give you those beautiful fruits that you can enjoy. And so you've got the garden, the Tomato Tone on here. It tells you for new plantings, for established plants, for potted plants, growing tips, everything you need to know is on here. Also, as a side note, one thing, maybe you have something, maybe you have citrus trees, or maybe you have orchids, or you've got indoor plants, or whatever it is that maybe that you have that I have not discussed. One thing that I really appreciate about Espoma, on their website, they have a plant food finder. So you can go to their website, I'll have it for you, have a link, so you can go in and search alphabetically by your plant. Let's say you've got a thuja, right? So you've got a beautiful evergreen tree. Well, sometimes it can be a little, even I don't know, does it just need plant tone or does it need holly tone? So you can go and you can look up thuja and it will tell you the recommended fertilizer. Now don't get too bogged down, don't get too overwhelmed. If you only buy one fertilizer to feed your entire garden with the entire season, what are we reaching for? That's right, my friends, plant tone. Swiss Army knife right here. So if that overwhelms you and you're like, I just can't do it, it's too much information, forget everything, buy your plant tone, feed them nice and strong in the spring, and then in the fall, give them a half dose. I promise you're going to have gorgeous, healthy plants in your growing season, and you are going to be so happy with the results, because we want strong plants. We want strong root system. We want strong foliage up top with, of course, the beautiful blooms, because strong plants are healthy plants, and healthy plants can handle those times of stress easier, just like our body. If your body is strong and healthy and has really good food, when you come in contact with a cold or a bacteria or a virus, your own immune system can fight that off. Same thing with the plants. If you've got a very strong plant and it gets bitten by an aphid or a Japanese beetle, or it comes into contact with some kind of powdery mildew, or think of something like that. it's got a strong immune system that it can fight that off, and it's not harmfully affected by that, whatever it is that is attacking it. This is why fertilizing is so important. Again, it's not the most glamorous part of gardening, but when you see a beautiful garden, it is the result that they're using fertilizers of some sort, because food equals flowers, food equals a strong, healthy plant. I really do hope that this has been helpful. This is one of those videos, again, that may not be the most exciting video to talk about, but it is one that is going to produce a beautiful garden year to year to year. So this is one of those foundational things that we need to learn about as gardeners, and understanding that NPK and what that means and each of the roles that those three macronutrients plays in the role of our garden is extremely important. So if you have found this fun, informative, inspirational, we would love if you would like and subscribe to Gardening with Creekside. That way you don't miss these 5 videos that we do each and every week for you. Y'all have an amazing day. Do not forget, they're 20% off for a very short amount of time. So go to the website, use your code, and get these babies in your hand. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.